how ancient Chinese emperors lived and died. You open your eyes, you're in silk, you smell incense, you hear whispers, you are the emperor. Congratulations, your lifespan just became shorter than the average peasant's. The morning rituals, or how to start your day as a divine prisoner. It's 4 a.m. Not that you would know, because no one has invented an alarm clock that would dare disturb the Son of Heaven. Instead, a eunuch has been watching you sleep all night, monitoring your breathing like a creepy, castrated guardian angel. He now whispers to another eunuch, who whispers to the chief of imperial mornings, who finally approaches your bed with the appropriate level of reverence. Your celestial majesty, he murmurs, bowing so low his forehead nearly touches the jade-inlaid floor. The sun will soon grace the world with its presence. Perhaps your magnificence would like to grace us with yours. You blink away sleep momentarily, forgetting the crushing weight of divinity that has been placed upon your shoulders. For one blessed second, you're just a man waking up. Then reality crashes down. You're the Qing Emperor, ruler of all under heaven, and your day of magnificent tedium is about to begin. 6 eunuchs appear from the shadows. You wonder if they've been there all night, standing motionless in the dark like particularly unsettling furniture. Their hands are soft and unnervingly cool as they help you out of bed. No son of heaven would ever be permitted the indignity of placing his own feet upon the floor unassisted. That would be like watching a god trip over his celestial bathrobe. The art of imperial hygiene. Now comes your morning ablutions, performed with the ceremonial gravity of a religious ritual, which, in a way, it is. Your body is not merely yours. It belongs to the empire, to your ancestors, to heaven itself. The water for your face has been boiled 7 times and cooled to precisely the right temperature. Too hot would be an insult to your divine skin. Too cold would risk giving the living embodiment of celestial authority a sniffle. A eunuch presents a golden basin while another holds a silk towel that has been blessed by monks and inspected for imperfections by 14 different officials. A third eunuch stands ready with your toothbrush, a special twig from a sweet-smelling tree, its end frayed into soft bristles. Your toothpaste is a powder made from salt, mint, and crushed pearls, because nothing says I'm important quite like brushing your teeth with literal wealth. You're not permitted to spit into the basin like a common mortal. Instead, a eunuch holds a special spittoon made of jade, positioned at precisely the right height and angle. Heaven forbid, imperial. Spittle should be improperly collected. There are probably 37 distinct philosophical texts written about the correct disposal of emperor saliva, the dressing ceremony. Now comes the daily torture of getting dressed. Your wardrobe is so large, it has its own bureaucracy. There's a minister of imperial hats, a director of dragon robes, and at least 7 eunuchs, whose sole purpose is to argue about which shade of yellow is most auspicious for today's socks. The chief of wardrobe approaches, bowing every 3 steps. Your Magnificence, for today's morning rituals, we have selected the robe of morning splendor, with the 5-clawed dragon motif representing your dominion over all lands. The undergarments are of the finest silk from Suzhou, and the boots are embroidered with pearls from the southern seas. You don't particularly care, but tradition dictates that each garment must be presented with a minor dissertation on its symbolic importance. The robe of morning splendor weighs approximately 30 pounds, thanks to its gold thread embroidery. Standing upright in it feels like being slowly crushed by wealth. It takes 12 eunuchs 45 minutes to dress you. Each has a specific role, The keeper of the imperial left sleeve must never touch the imperial right sleeve, which would cause a cosmic imbalance and probably trigger an earthquake somewhere in the empire. You stand perfectly still, arms outstretched like a very expensive scarecrow, as layer upon layer of silk is wrapped around your increasingly sweaty body. Buddhist prayers and shamanistic rituals. Once dressed in your 30 pounds of symbolic authority, you're led to your prayer chamber, because being Emperor of China wasn't complicated enough. You're expected to be both a devoted Buddhist and a practitioner of traditional Manchu shamanism. Religious flexibility is an underrated imperial skill. The Buddhist monks bow as you enter. They've been chanting for 3 hours already, preparing the spiritual atmosphere for your arrival. You kneel with the assistance of 2 eunuchs, because heaven forbid the Son of Heaven should bend his own knees and begin to pray. Your mind wanders. Last week, the astrologer of the Eastern Quadrant predicted that if you didn't pray with sufficient devotion, the spring rice harvest would fail and millions would starve. No pressure. After Buddhism comes shamanism, a holdover from your Manchu ancestors. You're led to a different chamber where animal bones, strange herbs, and various frightening masks await you. The chief shaman, one of the few non-eunuchs allowed in your private quarters, performs rituals to protect you from evil spirits, illness, and assassination attempts. You note with irony that the last 3 emperors died of mysterious illnesses, widely suspected to be poison. Perhaps the chief shaman needs a performance review. The imperial breakfast. It's now 7 a.m., and you've already been awake for 3 hours performing rituals. You're starving, but of course, you can't just say, "I'm hungry," like a normal person. Instead, you make a subtle gesture with your left hand, which the chief eunuch of morning nourishment interprets correctly as a desire for sustenance. You're led to a dining room where 26 dishes await your selection. Each has been prepared by a different chef, tasted by 3 food testers, and blessed by both Buddhist and Taoist priests. The dishes represent all regions of your vast empire. A political statement served on porcelain. A eunuch narrates each dish as it's presented. This humble rice porridge contains grains from the southern provinces, symbolizing your majesty's nurturing presence in the lives of your southern subjects. The duck has been prepared in the style of Nanjing to honor your imperial ancestors' conquests. You take 3 bites of the porridge, 2 of the duck, and a single taste of a steamed bun. Imperial dining etiquette dictates that you never finish. A dish that would suggest the palace kitchens failed to provide enough food. Besides, everyone knows that proper emperors subsist primarily on jade powder and morning dew. Actual hunger would be embarrassingly mortal. Greeting your mother after breakfast. Filial piety demands you visit the Empress Dowager, your mother, or, more likely, your father's favorite concubine who managed to produce a male heir. Regardless of your actual feelings toward her, Confucian values require you to show the utmost respect. You're led through a maze of corridors to her palace within the Forbidden City. Despite being emperor, you can't simply walk from point A to point B. That would be efficient, and efficiency is for peasants. Instead, you process through the palace with an entourage of guards, eunuchs, scholars, and various ministers, each positioned at a precise distance from your divine person according to their rank. The Empress Dowager sits on a throne nearly as grand as yours. You kowtow to her. Yes, even emperors must bow to their mothers, touching your forehead to the ground 3 times. She offers a faint smile, which could mean anything from approval to "I'm plotting to have you poisoned at dinner." She speaks, "My son, the dragon throne suits you well. Your father would be proud." what she doesn't say, but what hangs in the air between you. Don't forget who put you here. And don't forget I can replace you with one of your more agreeable half-brothers. You exchange pleasantries about her health, the weather, and which ministers might be plotting treason this week. It's all very civilized, wrapped in layers of protocol as thick as your ceremonial robes. The imperial court session now comes the part of the day where you actually have to rule. It's 8 a.m. and you've been performing ceremonial duties for 4 hours already. Your back aches from maintaining perfect posture, your head throbs from the weight of your hat, and the real work hasn't even begun. You're led to the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the largest hall in the Forbidden City. Your throne sits on a raised platform, surrounded by pillars carved with dragons. As you enter, hundreds of officials drop to their knees, pressing their foreheads to the cold stone floor. The sound of their unified kowtow echoes through the vast hall like a wave breaking. The Grand Secretary approaches, walking on his knees to avoid standing taller than you, even for a moment. He presents the day's memorials, written reports from throughout your empire. There are border disputes, reports of floods and famines, recommendations for appointments, and at least 3 separate accounts of auspicious signs that validate your divine rule: a 2-headed calf born in Shandong, clouds that resembled dragons, a particularly symmetrical eggplant. You're expected to comment on each memorial, demonstrating your wisdom and heavenly insight. The officials watch your every expression, looking for hints of favor or disapproval. A slight nod toward a minister might advance his career. A momentary frown could send him to a remote province to count grain stores for the rest of his life. It's political theater on a grand scale, and you're both the star and the captive audience. Noon recess, the weight of the yellow robes. By midday, the morning court session finally concludes. You rise from your throne, the movement causing tiny golden dragons on your robe to catch the light and appear to writhe with life. The assembled officials kowtow once more as you depart, their foreheads touching the stone floors in perfect unison. You're escorted back to your private quarters, where eunuchs await to remove your formal court attire. The relief is immediate, like a turtle freed from its shell. The dragon robe alone weighs over 30 pounds, and the ceremonial necklaces, belts, and hat add another 15. You've been carrying the literal weight of empire on your shoulders since dawn. Would your celestial magnificence care for a moment of rest? Asks the chief eunuch of midday affairs. You nod, allowing yourself to be led to a daybed position to catch the precise angle of sunlight, considered most beneficial for imperial contemplation. 2 eunuchs begin a gentle massage of your feet and shoulders, while another fans you with enormous feathers from some exotic bird that probably went extinct specifically to cool emperors. Another servant approaches with a special tea brewed from herbs grown on sacred mountains. It's said to promote longevity, mental clarity, and virility. 3 obsessions of every emperor since the Han dynasty. The taste is bitter and earthy, but you've learned to appreciate it, or at least pretend to. Your moment of rest is constantly interrupted. The Chief Minister of Public Works needs your seal on plans for flood control along the Yellow River. The Captain of the Imperial Guard reports on security arrangements for an upcoming ritual at the Temple of Heaven. A court astrologer needs to inform you that Venus has entered an inauspicious alignment with Jupiter, suggesting you should postpone your planned hunt next week. Even in your private chambers, you're never truly alone, never really at rest. The machinery of state grinds on, and you are its central cog, unable to stop turning even for a moment. The art of imperial dining. Midday brings another elaborate meal, though less formal than breakfast. The imperial kitchen has prepared 44 dishes today, a number chosen by court numerologists as particularly auspicious for the 15th day of the 4th lunar month. You dine alone, or what passes for alone, when you're surrounded by 20 silent servants. One stands behind your chair, watching for the slightest gesture that might indicate a desire for more wine or a particular dish. Others hover near the walls, practically invisible until needed, then materializing at your side with unsettling speed. Each dish is a work of art, vegetables carved into flowers, fruits arranged in patterns representing longevity, meats shaped like mythical creatures. The presentation is often more impressive than the taste. Imperial cuisine prioritizes symbolism over flavor, philosophical balance over culinary satisfaction. Your favorite dish arrives, a simple steamed fish from Lake Tai. Before you can enjoy it, the court nutritionist steps forward. "Your Majesty," he says with a deep bow, "the balance of yin and yang in your diet today suggests that fish might create an excess of cold energy. Perhaps the braised venison would better complement your morning intake." You suppress a sigh. Even your meals must conform to cosmic theories and medical philosophies. You dutifully accept the venison instead, watching your fish being whisked away, probably to be eaten by some lucky eunuch later. As you eat, the Minister of Rites reads from Confucian classics, ensuring that even your digestion is accompanied by moral improvement. You've heard these same passages hundreds of times, but tradition demands their daily recitation. The rhythm of the ancient texts is almost hypnotic, and you find yourself drifting into contemplation of nothing in particular. A rare mental freedom in your regimented existence. The imperial study, the scholar-emperor. After your meal, you're led to the imperial study, where the real work of governance begins. While the morning court is largely ceremonial, it's here in your study that you actually read reports, issue edicts, and make the decisions that will affect millions of lives across your vast empire. Your desk is a masterpiece of carved ziton, wood, nearly black with age and polish. It's been used by emperors for 3 centuries, and the weight of history seems embedded in its grain. Before you sits a stack of memorials from provincial governors, military commanders, and imperial censors, the eyes and ears of your government. The Grand Secretary kneels nearby, ready to explain complex matters or take dictation for your responses. He's a clever man, educated in the Confucian classics and skilled in the labyrinthine politics of the imperial court. You trust him as much as you trust anyone, which is to say, barely at all. You begin with reports from Zhongnan province, where floods have destroyed rice crops and left thousands homeless. The governor recommends tax relief and the distribution of imperial grain reserves. You approve his plan, but increase the grain allocation by 20%. A gesture of imperial benevolence that will be publicized throughout the region. Next comes a memorial from the northern border, where Mongol tribes have been raiding Chinese settlements. The military commander requests additional troops and supplies. You approve half his request, knowing that too large a force might provoke the very conflict you're trying to avoid. Instead, you authorize funds for diplomatic gifts to Mongol chieftains, expensive in the short term, but cheaper than war. A court censor has submitted a scathing report about corruption in the Ministry of Public Works. Reading between the lines, you recognize this as part of an ongoing factional struggle between the censor's political allies and the minister's family. You set this memorial aside for now, Addressing it would mean choosing sides in a conflict. You'd rather observe a while longer. Hours pass as you work through the stack of documents. This is the invisible side of imperial rule. The careful reading, the weighing of options, the strategic decisions that will never be recorded in the grand histories that focus on battles and ceremonies. It's exhausting mental labor, made more difficult by the knowledge that a single misplaced word in an edict could lead to disaster. The afternoon inspection, everything must be perfect. By mid-afternoon, it's time for one of your least favorite duties, the inspection of palace preparations for upcoming ceremonies. The autumn sacrifice to heaven is just 2 weeks away, and as son of heaven, your performance of this ritual is believed to directly impact the empire's prosperity. You're led to the ritual storehouse, where implements used in the ceremony are kept. The master of sacrificial vessels bows deeply as you enter. Your celestial majesty honors us with your divine presence, he intones, kowtowing 3 times. For the next hour, you examine jade tablets, bronze vessels, silk banners, and ceremonial weapons. Each item must be without flaw. A single crack in a ritual cup or a loose thread on a banner could be interpreted as a bad omen or worse, negligence in your sacred duties. You notice a small discoloration on a ceremonial jade tablet. The master of sacrificial vessels follows your gaze and immediately prostrates himself. Your divine majesty's perception is unmatched. This unworthy servant failed to notice this imperfection. I beg for merciful punishment rather than justified execution. You sigh internally. This happens at every inspection, someone dramatically offering their life for a minor oversight. Court protocol requires you to show mercy for the first offense, anger at the second, and punishment for the third. It's all a performance, a ritual as choreographed as the sacrifices themselves. Rise, you command. Have the tablet replaced. Before the ceremony, no punishment is necessary. The relief on the man's face is palpable. He kowtows repeatedly, backing away while thanking you for your boundless mercy. You followed the script perfectly, maintaining the delicate balance of imperial terror and benevolence that keeps the massive palace bureaucracy functioning. Next, you inspect the sacrificial animals, spotless white bulls that will be offered to heaven. Each animal has been raised in special pastures, isolated from common livestock, fed a strict diet, and examined daily for any marks or blemishes. The chief veterinarian assures you that these bulls are the most perfect specimens in the empire, worthy of heaven's acceptance. You nod approval, trying not to think about the fact that you've just spent 45 minutes inspecting cows when there are border disputes, economic crises, and political rivalries demanding your attention. But such is the nature of imperial rule. The symbolic and ceremonial aspects of your position often overshadow practical governance. As you leave the inspection area, you hear whispers among the officials. They're already discussing your expressions, interpreting your briefest glances as indications of favor or displeasure. By dinner, elaborate theories about your thoughts during the inspection will be circulating throughout the Forbidden City, influencing factional alignments and career prospects. The sun begins its descent toward the horizon. You've been awake for 12 hours, performed countless rituals, made decisions affecting millions of lives, and inspected ceremonial livestock. Your day is only half over, and the most dangerous part is yet to come. The shadowy world of palace intrigue that thrives after dark in the Forbidden City. The midday meal, a culinary minefield by midday. You've spent approximately 6 hours performing ceremonial duties, attending to state affairs, and trying not to collapse under the weight of your ceremonial regalia. Now it's time for lunch, which is somehow both a reprieve from official duties and its own elaborate performance. You're led to a different dining chamber than the one used for breakfast. This one faces south, because eating lunch while facing north would upset the cosmic balance and possibly cause droughts in the western provinces. At least, that's what the Imperial Geomancer insists, and no one has been brave enough to challenge him on this point. 40-4 dishes await your selection today. The number 44 is auspicious for midday meals during the 4th month of the year, according to a complex calendrical system that even your most learned scholars admit is mostly made up as they go along. Your Celestial Majesty announces, the Chief of Culinary Ceremonies, today we present delicacies from all corners of your divine realm. You eye the spread with suspicion. Every emperor knows the most common method of assassination is poison, typically administered during meals. That's why each dish has been tasted by 3 food testers, who are currently being observed in a nearby room for signs of imminent death. If they're still alive after 2 hours, you might consider eating the particularly appealing steamed crab. A eunuch samples each dish before your eyes, taking a substantial bite and waiting 30 seconds before moving to the next. You watch his face carefully. Is that a twitch? A bead of sweat? No, just the usual eunuch nervousness. You select several items, taking only small bites from each. Imperial physicians have advised a diet rich in rare ingredients believed to promote longevity. Swallow's nest soup, deer antler shavings, bear paw, and tiger bone broth. You've eaten so many immortality foods that you sometimes wonder if you're more medicinal ingredient than man at this point. Afternoon leisure, the Emperor's free time, after lunch comes. What your schedulers optimistically call leisure time. This creates the illusion that you, the Son of Heaven, might actually have a moment to yourself. You daunt your leisure activities have been carefully selected by the Ministry of Imperial Pastimes to be appropriately dignified, while also demonstrating your cultural refinement. Today's options include calligraphy practice, playing the 7-string zither, composing poetry about the virtues of good governance, or painting bamboo never flowers, which are too frivolous for an emperor. You choose calligraphy, settling at a desk made from rare Wangwali wood. A eunuch grinds an inkstick against an inkstone with precise, circular motions. Another unfurls a scroll of paper made from mulberry bark, so fine you can see through it when held to light. You take up the brush, aware that 14 scholars are watching your every stroke, ready to analyze your characters for signs of your mental state. Write forcefully, and rumors of imperial anger will spread through the court. Too delicately, and they'll whisper about your weakening resolve. You can't just write. You must embody perfect balance through your calligraphy. You write a poem about mountains and rivers, heavy with political metaphors that the court scholars will dissect for months. Your brushwork will be preserved, copied, and distributed throughout the empire as examples of imperial wisdom made manifest in ink. The imperial gardens, a prison of beauty. Feeling suffocated by the weight of ceremony, you request a walk in the imperial gardens. Your chief eunuch looks momentarily panicked. Spontaneity isn't on today's schedule, but quickly recovers. The gardens have been prepared for your Majesty's divine presence, he announces, though you know perfectly well they hadn't been. Within minutes, an army of gardeners will be frantically pruning any wayward branches, sweeping paths, and ensuring no dead leaves dare show themselves during your stroll. You walk through artificial mountains, past carefully positioned rocks, selected for their philosophical qualities, alongside ponds where specially bred golden carp swim in auspicious patterns. The gardens are a masterpiece of controlled nature, where even the placement of a single pebble has symbolic significance. Guards walk 20 paces ahead, behind, and to each side of you, despite being in the most secure location in the empire, surrounded by multiple rings of walls and thousands of soldiers. You are never truly alone. The Son of Heaven is too valuable to be left unattended for even a moment. You pause by a pond, watching the fish. A eunuch immediately appears with a small jade container of special food for the imperial carp. You toss a few pellets and watch the water boil with hungry fish. You envy their simple existence. The imperial harem, complicated politics in silk, robes as afternoon transitions to evening. Your thoughts might turn to more carnal matters. As emperor, you command a harem of hundreds of women, carefully selected from throughout the empire for their beauty, family connections, and potential fertility. This is not, as outsiders might imagine, simply a collection of sexual partners. The imperial harem is a complex political institution, a human chessboard where alliances are formed and broken, and where your future successor will likely be born. The inner palace, as it's formally known, operates under strict hierarchy. At the top sits the Empress, your official wife, who may or may not share your bed, but who definitely oversees the harem's administration. Below her are the imperial noble consorts, imperial concubines, and various ranks of serving women and maids. Each woman's position comes with specific privileges, living quarters, and access to your divine person. The chief eunuch presents you with a lacquered box containing wooden tablets, each inscribed with the name of a consort. This is how you select your companion for the night, a system designed to ensure appropriate rotation and prevent any single woman from monopolizing imperial favor. You select a tablet. The chosen consort will now undergo hours of preparation, bathing in scented water, having her body checked for hidden weapons, and being dressed, or rather undressed, according to imperial protocol. Later, she'll be wrapped in a silk blanket and carried to your chambers by eunuchs, like a human gift basket. What outsiders don't realize is that this system isn't primarily for your pleasure. It's to ensure the production of heirs while maintaining court balance. Every time you select a woman, you're making a political statement, elevating her family's status, and potentially creating the future emperor. Sex isn't just sex when you're the Son of Heaven. It's statecraft with fewer clothes. Evening court, the shadow government. As the sun sets, you attend the evening court session. Unlike the formal morning audience, this smaller gathering includes only your closest advisors and highest ministers. Here, real decisions are made away. From the performance of the main court, the evening court meets in a smaller chamber, lit by oil lamps that cast long shadows on the walls. These shadows seem to move on their own sometimes, and you've learned to speak quietly. The palace has 1,000 ears, many belonging to people who shouldn't be listening. Your Grand Secretary presents reports too sensitive for the morning court. Border skirmishes with nomadic tribes, suspected corruption among provincial governors, whispers of discontent among the merchant class. Here, you can speak more freely, though never completely so. The governor of Guangdong province has sent another memorial requesting additional troops to deal with foreign merchants. The Grand Secretary reports, his voice low. The British again. You ask, . Yes, Your Majesty. They continue to insist on trading directly with our merchants, bypassing the approved Canton system. You sigh. These foreign barbarians are persistent with their opium and manufactured goods. Some of your advisors counsel engagement. Others demand you expel all foreigners from Chinese soil. Whatever you decide will shape the empire for generations. The meeting continues late into the night. Unlike the ceremonial morning court, real policy emerges from these shadowy discussions. By the time you adjourn, it's nearly midnight, and you've been performing your imperial duties for 20 hours straight. The secret reports what the emperor really needs to know. After the evening court disperses, you remain with just your most trusted advisor, the Grand Secretary. This ancient official has served 3 emperors before you, somehow navigating the treacherous waters of palace politics without drowning. His loyalty isn't to you personally, but to the institution of imperial rule, which makes him paradoxically more trustworthy than those who profess undying personal devotion. The true reports, now, you say. And he produces a thin stack of papers from within his voluminous sleeve. These are the memorials that never enter the official record. Reports from spies embedded in noble households, secret messages from agents in foreign lands, and detailed accounts of corruption among officials too powerful to accuse publicly. This shadow information network is what really keeps you in power. Lady Wu's family continues to build their army in Shaanxi province. The Grand Secretary begins. They claim it's to defend against bandits, but our agents report they now have more men than the official imperial garrison. You nod. Lady Wu is one of your noble consorts, supposedly devoted to you. Yet her family appears to be preparing for rebellion, or at least positioning themselves for power should you die unexpectedly. You'll need to separate her from her family's influence without revealing you suspect them. The Dowager's physician has been meeting secretly with the Minister of Works. The Grand Secretary continues. They've exchanged packages on 3 occasions. Contents unknown. Another concerning development. The Empress Dowager, your father's consort and your stepmother, has never approved of your policies. Is she planning to poison you, or simply treating some embarrassing ailment she doesn't want the court to gossip about? Imperial rule requires constant paranoia disguised as calm certainty. And the most troubling news, Your Majesty, 3 palace servants disappeared last month. Their replacements arrived with perfect documentation, but our investigations show the documents were forged. We believe they are assassins from the White Lotus Society. You suppress a shudder. The White Lotus Society has tried to overthrow the Qing dynasty for generations, viewing your Manchu lineage as foreign usurpers of the true Chinese throne. Their assassins are famously patient, sometimes infiltrating the palace for years before. Striking, replace all my food tasters, you command, and move my sleeping quarters tonight. Tell no one but those who absolutely must know. The Grand Secretary nods, making a note. This isn't the first time you've made such a request, nor will it be the last. Emperors who establish predictable routines tend to have unpredictably short reigns. Nighttime entertainment, the imperial performance. Before retiring, you attend a special performance in the Palace of Heavenly Purity. A troupe of female musicians and dancers has been rehearsing for months for this single evening of imperial entertainment. Their livelihoods, possibly their lives, depend on your reaction to their performance. The musicians play pipa and erhu, traditional instruments whose mournful tones remind you of the world outside. These palace walls, a world you rarely get to experience. The dancers move in perfect synchronization, their sleeves flowing like water. Their steps so precise, they seem to float above the floor. You watch from behind a translucent screen, a convention that allows you to observe without being directly gazed upon by common performers. The screen also allows you to hide your true reactions, which is fortunate, as your mind is still occupied with thoughts of potential assassins and rebellious nobles. The chief eunuch watches your face carefully for any sign of displeasure or boredom. Halfway through, he notices your subtle shift in posture and immediately signals the performers to move to their finale. The music swells, the dancers whirl faster, and the performance concludes with a dramatic flourish. Did the divine performance please your celestial majesty? The chief eunuch inquires. It was satisfactory, you reply, the highest praise an emperor typically offers. The performers, listening from behind a screen of their own, will weep with relief. Satisfactory means they will be rewarded rather than punished, allowed to live another day in service to the pure imperial household. The truly impressive part of the evening isn't the technical skill of the musicians or the grace of the dancers. It's the elaborate system of surveillance and signaling that surrounds you. Every servant, performer, and official is watching for your slightest reaction, communicating with each other through nearly imperceptible gestures, all to create the illusion that the world responds effortlessly to your divine will. Nighttime paranoia, the dark side of absolute power. As you prepare for bed, the day's tensions don't dissipate. If anything, night brings its own special brand of imperial anxiety. The Forbidden City transforms after dark, its vast courtyards and winding corridors becoming more ominous. Lanterns cast uncertain light, and every shadow might hide an assassin. Your bedchamber is searched thoroughly before you enter. Eunuchs check under the massive bed, behind screens, inside cabinets. Others taste your nighttime tea, inspect your sleeping robes for poison needles, and ensure the imperial chamber pot is free of venomous creatures. It has happened before. You dismiss most of your attendants, keeping only 2 trusted eunuchs who will stand guard throughout the night. There, castration theoretically ensures their loyalty, though history has shown that removing certain parts doesn't remove ambition. Still, these 2 have served you for years, and if they wanted you dead, they've had ample opportunity. As you lie in bed, your mind races with threats, real and imagined. You recall the palace plot of the Rinian year, when 16 palace women attempted to strangle the Jiujing emperor in his sleep. He survived only because one conspirator lost her nerve and raised the alarm. Then there was the first Qin emperor, who became so paranoid about assassination that he slept in a different room each night, telling no one in advance where he would rest. He still died before his time, likely poisoned by ministers seeking to install a more pliable ruler. You think of Emperor Guangxu poisoned with arsenic in his yogurt. Official histories claimed he died of illness, but everyone knew the Empress Dowager Cixi had ordered his death to prevent his reforms from being implemented after her passing. Sleep comes fitfully, if at all. The weight of the empire presses down on you, even in dreams. Tomorrow you'll rise before dawn to do it all again. Trapped in the gilded cage of ultimate power, the midnight hour, when emperors are most human, in the deepest part of night, when most of the palace sleeps and only the night guards remain vigilant. You experience the closest thing to solitude an emperor ever knows. The midnight hour is when many emperors finally shed the performance of divinity and allow themselves to be briefly, secretly human. You rise from your bed, gesturing for your personal eunuchs to remain at their posts. You move to a simple wooden desk in the corner of your sleeping chamber. This desk, unlike the ornate dragon throne or the massive Zaitan wood table in your study, is relatively plain. It's here that you keep your private journal. The journal isn't truly private, of course. You harbor no illusions that after your death, or perhaps even before, court officials will read every character you've written. Future historians will analyze your midnight thoughts, looking for signs of wisdom or madness. But for now, in the flickering light of a single oil lamp, you can at least pretend you're writing for yourself alone. You take up a brush and begin to compose. Not flowery imperial edicts or formal poetry, but simple reflections. You write about your frustrations with the court's factions, your doubts about military campaigns, your suspicions about the loyalty of certain ministers, things you could never say aloud without triggering crises. Many emperors before you have kept such journals. The Kangxi Emperor wrote extensively about his struggle to balance Manchu traditions with Chinese governance. The Qianlong Emperor filled volumes with his private thoughts on art, literature, and the growing problem of European demands for trade. These midnight writings often reveal more about imperial minds than all the official histories combined. You write about your loneliness, the peculiar isolation that comes from being surrounded by thousands of people, none of whom can treat you as a mere mortal. You write about your fear of failure, of becoming one of those emperors whose reigns mark the beginning of dynastic decline. You write about the crushing weight of ancestry, the pressure to live up to legendary rulers, like Kangxi, while avoiding the mistakes of disastrous ones, like Jiao Jing. The writing is therapeutic, but dangerous. Should these private thoughts be discovered during your lifetime, they could be used against you. Expressions of doubt might be interpreted as weakness. Criticism of officials could trigger revenge plots. Yet the psychological need to unburden yourself outweighs the risk. As the night deepens, you seal your journal and return it to its hidden compartment in the desk. This small act of reflection is perhaps your only truly independent action in a life otherwise entirely choreographed by tradition and politics. You return to your imperial bed, hoping for a few hours of sleep before the elaborate performance of divine rulership begins again at dawn. In these quiet midnight moments, every emperor faces the same haunting truth. Absolute power has made you absolutely controlled by the very institution that grants that power. You are both the most important person in the empire and, in many ways, the least free. The gold thread in your robes is as much a chain as it is a decoration. The dragon throne is as much a prison as it is a seat of authority. The emperor's illness, when divine bodies fail, despite consuming rare medicines and magical elixirs every day of your imperial life, you eventually fall ill. Perhaps it's the mercury pills your imperial physician insisted would grant immortality. Perhaps it's the stress of carrying heaven's mandate. Or perhaps it's just that humans, even divine ones, are mortal after all. Your illness begins subtly. A persistent cough, fatigue that even the most potent ginseng tea can't cure. You hide these symptoms as long as possible. Showing weakness is dangerous when everyone around you is calculating their future based on your longevity. But bodies betray even emperors. During a morning audience, you collapse, your dragon robe suddenly unbearable. The court erupts in controlled chaos. No one dares touch your sacred person without permission, but leaving the Son of Heaven unconscious on the floor seems equally inappropriate. Finally, the chief eunuch signals the imperial guards, who carry you to your private chambers. Court physicians are summoned, along with Buddhist monks, Taoist priests, and shamanic healers. No one wants to take sole responsibility for your treatment. If you recover, they all want credit. If you die, they all want plausible deniability. Your bedchamber becomes a battleground of competing medical philosophies. The Confucian doctor recommends balance through diet. The Taoist priest prepares alchemical elixirs of cinnabar and gold. The Buddhist monk chants sutras to cleanse your karma. The shaman sacrifices a black rooster and examines its entrails for divine guidance. You drift in and out of consciousness, aware that beyond your sick room, the court is already preparing for transition. Your ministers publicly pray for your recovery, while privately aligning themselves with potential successors. Your concubines with sons suddenly find themselves elevated or isolated, depending on their children's prospects for the throne. The imperial deathbed, politics to the very end. As your condition deteriorates, the true nature of imperial power reveals itself. You are both the most important person in the empire and increasingly irrelevant. Decisions begin to be made without your input, using your seal but not your hand. The empress and your most senior consort rarely leave your side, not out of devotion but to ensure no one else gains control of your final edicts. They whisper in your ear, guiding your failing hand to sign documents that will secure their positions after you're gone. Eunuchs control access to your chambers, accepting bribes from ministers desperate for a final audience. Some loyal servants are turned away while schemers gain entrance. Information about your condition becomes a valuable currency, traded and manipulated throughout the Forbidden City. You know you're dying, but even this most personal of experiences isn't truly your own. Your death, like your life, belongs to the Empire. Court astrologers have already determined the most auspicious time for you to expire. Dying at the wrong hour might bring disaster to the realm, so they helpfully inform you when heaven would prefer you to breathe your last dot in your more lucid moments. You dictate your final edicts, or what you think are your final edicts. You name your successor, usually your eldest son, though not always. Distribute titles and lands to your other children, and issue pardons or punishments to settle final scores. What you don't know is whether these commands will be honored. History is filled with lost imperial edicts and convenient reinterpretations of a dead emperor's wishes. The emperor's death, a state secret. When you finally die, your passing is not immediately announced. Your body may be cooling, but the political machinery needs time to prepare. The court cannot risk a power vacuum, even for a moment. Your death becomes the empire's most closely guarded secret. Eunuchs continue to bring food to your chambers, reporting fictional conversations with you to maintain the illusion. Ministers submit memorials and receive responses from your hand, actually written by the chief eunuch or the grand secretary. Behind closed doors, frantic preparations are underway. Your successor must be in place before your death is announced. Key military commanders must pledge loyalty to the new emperor. Potential rivals must be neutralized. This charade might continue for days or even weeks. Emperor Qianlong's death was concealed for nearly 2 weeks while his son consolidated power. Emperor Jiajing's demise remained secret for a month, his corpse packed in ice to prevent decay during the hot summer months. When preparations are complete, your death is finally announced to the empire. A 27-gun salute booms across the capital. All officials don white mourning clothes. Music and celebrations are prohibited throughout the land. Commoners are forbidden from cutting their hair for 100 days as a sign of grief. Your body is washed with scented water and dressed in the finest burial robes. Layered in auspicious numbers, jade pieces are placed in your bodily orifices to prevent decay and guide your spirit. Your face is covered with a mask made from thousands of pearls sewn onto silk. You were placed in a coffin made from a special catalpa tree that took 50 years to locate and harvest. The funeral procession, death as theatre. Your funeral is the final performance of your imperial career, and possibly the grandest. The procession, from the Forbidden City to your temporary resting place, stretches for miles. A river of white-clad mourners moving through streets cleared of ordinary citizens. Your coffin travels on an enormous cart pulled by elephants and hundreds of palace servants. The wheels are deliberately uneven, causing the cart to sway and lurch. Tradition holds that spirits move in jagged lines, not smooth ones, and your journey should mimic their path. Professional mourners wail with practiced grief, their cries rising and falling in carefully choreographed patterns. Buddhist monks and Taoist priests chant continuously, creating a soundtrack for your final journey. Paper effigies of servants, concubines, and animals are carried alongside you, to be burned later as offerings for your afterlife. The procession stops periodically for ceremonial wailing and offerings. At each pause, a court official reads a portion of your official obituary, a document so carefully worded that it took teams of scholars months to compose. It details your virtues while delicately rephrasing your failures as noble challenges you magnanimously faced. Your body will not go directly to its final tomb. Instead, it rests in a temporary palace while your massive mausoleum is completed, a process that may take years. Your successor is expected to devote enormous resources to your tomb, demonstrating his filial piety while simultaneously depleting the treasury enough to limit his own ambitions. The imperial tomb, preparing for eternity. Your tomb has actually been under construction. Since the day you ascended the throne, Chinese emperors, particularly practical about their mortality, begin planning their afterlife accommodations immediately. Upon taking power, your mausoleum is a miniature Forbidden City, complete with throne rooms, bedchambers, and kitchens, all reproduced underground. Stone statues of officials, servants, and concubines line the approaches. Massive stone animals, elephants, camels, lions stand guard at regular intervals, frozen sentinels that will never abandon their posts. The tomb's entrance is sealed with a massive stone door, designed to appear as part of the natural mountain. When closed, beyond it lies a series of chambers, each more restricted than the last, leading eventually to your burial room. Booby traps protect these passages, crossbows triggered by tripwires, pits filled with sharpened bamboo, falling, stone blocks activated by pressure plates. These deadly devices ensure that grave robbers face the same fate as those who threatened you in life. Your actual burial chamber is a marvel of engineering. The coffin rests on a bed of mercury, which the ancients believed prevented decay. The liquid metal also creates an illusion of flowing rivers and oceans when disturbed. Above, the domed ceiling is inlaid with pearls and precious stones arranged to mimic the night sky on the date of your birth. Surrounding your coffin are the treasures you'll need in the afterlife: gold, jade, porcelain, silks, and ritual vessels. Nearby rest the things that gave you pleasure in life: musical instruments, calligraphy, brushes, game boards, even replicas of favorite foods crafted from jade and gold. In earlier dynasties, your favorite concubines and servants would have been buried alive with you to continue their service in the afterlife. By the Qing dynasty, this practice had been replaced with clay figures, though rumors persisted that some especially devoted servants still chose to accompany their masters into eternity. The selection of an heir death's deadliest game, while your body makes its slow journey to eternal rest. The living are consumed with the business of succession. If you were wise or lucky, you named a clear heir and eliminated potential rivals before your death. If not, the aftermath of your passing becomes a blood-soaked scramble for power. The ideal succession is straightforward. Your eldest son by the Empress takes the throne, continuing the direct line. But imperial succession rarely follows the ideal path. Perhaps your Empress was barren, and your successor comes from a lower-ranked consort. Perhaps you had multiple sons, each with powerful maternal relatives backing their claim. Perhaps you died suddenly without naming an heir at all. Court factions form around potential candidates. The Empress Dowager, your widow, may support one son, while powerful ministers back another. Military commanders and provincial governors declare allegiances, calculating which candidate offers the best chance for their continued prosperity. In the worst cases, succession disputes explode into open conflict. Brothers imprison or execute each other, uncles eliminate nephews. Empress dowagers poison stepchildren who threaten their own sons' claims. The palace becomes a battleground where eunuchs assassinate officials. Guards murder princes, and concubines smother rivals' infants in their cribs. Even after a successor claims the throne, his position remains precarious. New emperors often execute those who helped them gain power, eliminating potential threats and witnesses to their bloody ascension. The cycle of paranoia and purges begins anew. Your legacy, how history remembers the Son of Heaven. Once the succession is settled and your body entombed, all that remains is your legacy, how future generations will remember your reign. This, too, is a political battleground, fought long after you've departed for the celestial bureaucracy. Your successor controls the official narrative. If he respects your memory, you'll be remembered as wise, just, and benevolent. Your mistakes will be minimized, your achievements exaggerated. Court historians will craft your official biography with careful attention to political needs rather than historical accuracy. If your successor resents you or needs to establish his own legitimacy in contrast to yours, your legacy darkens. Suddenly, court histories discover your secret cruelties, your administrative failures, your moral lapses. The same reign can be recorded as a golden age or a catastrophic decline, depending on who holds the brush. Some emperors achieve the rare distinction of historical consensus. The Kangxi Emperor is universally acknowledged as capable and effective. The Jiujing Emperor's sadistic treatment of palace women and obsession with Taoist immortality practices have tarnished his reputation beyond redemption. Most emperors exist in historical ambiguity, their actual achievements and failures obscured by layers of political revision. Even in death, you remain a symbol more than a person, a vessel for Confucian ideals of rulership, rather than a human who once lived, loved, feared, and died. The ghost in the machine. How dead emperors still rule. Death doesn't end your influence on the empire. In some ways, it enhances it. As a living emperor, you were constrained by mortal limitations, the need to eat, sleep, manage court factions, and navigate political realities. As a dead emperor, you become something purer and more powerful, an idea. Your spirit is believed to have ascended to join the celestial bureaucracy, where you can influence heaven's decisions regarding your descendants. And the empire. Your successor must perform regular sacrifices at your tomb and the imperial ancestral temple, reporting significant developments and seeking your spiritual approval for major decisions. These rituals aren't merely symbolic. Many emperors genuinely believe their predecessors' spirits can bring fortune or calamity. When Emperor Qianlong faced a massive Yellow River flood that threatened millions of lives, he personally performed elaborate ceremonies at his grandfather Kanxi's tomb, begging the deceased emperor's spirit to intercede with heaven and stop the deluge. Your portraits hang in the ancestral hall, where court ceremonies regularly honor your memory. Your personal belongings become sacred relics, imbued with mystical significance and carefully preserved. Your written words are collected into an official history that serves as a guide and warning to future rulers. In this way, dead emperors often exert more consistent influence than living ones. Your successor might disagree with your policies, but can rarely criticize them openly without undermining the very system that legitimizes his own rule. Instead, he must claim to be following your vision while subtly redirecting the empire according to his own priorities. The most successful emperors understand that they're not just ruling their contemporary subjects, but also managing their relationship with generations of imperial ghosts whose symbolic power can either buttress or undermine their authority. As your spirit ascends to join the celestial bureaucracy, or so the priests assure your successor, the cycle begins anew. Your heir awakens before dawn, surrounded by eunuchs, weighted down by robes heavy with symbolism and expectation. He will follow the same rituals, fight the same political battles, and eventually die the same closely managed death. The system is designed to continue regardless of who wears the yellow robes, an eternal machine that consumes individual emperors while perpetuating imperial rule. The greatest irony of absolute power is its absolute limitations. As Son of Heaven, you commanded millions but controlled almost nothing in your daily life. You owned everything, yet possessed nothing truly your own. Your every word became law, yet you spoke mostly words written by others. The new emperor will soon discover what you learned through decades of rule. The dragon throne is as much trap as reward. The gold thread in his robes binds as much as it decorates. The jade scepter of authority is also a burden that cannot be set down. He sits now, where you once sat, believing himself more clever, more capable, more destined for greatness than you were. Perhaps he plans reforms, dreams of military conquests, or simply hopes to enjoy the sensual pleasures of imperial life more thoroughly than his predecessor. What he doesn't yet understand is that the vast machinery of imperial governance will grind these personal ambitions into shapes that fit its ancient gears. His individual desires matter less than the system's need for continuity. His unique personality will be gradually obscured beneath layers of ritual and tradition, until he becomes just another link in the imperial chain, stretching back to mythical Yellow Emperor and forward to some unimaginable future. And so the great wheel turns, emperor after emperor, dynasty after dynasty, until one day the wheel breaks. But that's another story for another night. You open your eyes, you're in modern clothes, you smell coffee, you hear the hum of electronics. You are no longer the emperor. Congratulations, your lifespan just returned to normal.